How's everyone doing? I'm back at my favorite conference, so glad to see you all here. Let's give a round of applause for the event organizers, right? This has been awesome so far. Yeah, lot to go. So, yeah, really good to see everyone, and they put me early this year, so hopefully everyone's awake. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of expand on some of the topics I talked about last year. One of the things I talked about when I was up on stage last year was the need to just literally consume and distribute this information and why that was so valuable. What we've done over the course of the last year is really taken that a next step and really looked at how do people use existing conditions, construction scans in coordination. And I really took a lot of my industrial past for this, so you'll probably see a lot of this in there, but we used to retrofit almost every project that we did. So, what we're going to be talking about is when point clouds are part of clash detection and what our platform can do with that and what we feel like other platforms should really strive towards. So, first of all, a little bit about myself. There's a picture of me with my daughter's bearded dragon. I have been scanning and using scans since 2006 in many different ways, starting with LiDAR, moving through terrestrial scans into drones and photogrammetry. And what I do is I manage the global technical team, which essentially goes out and helps all of our clients implement the product. So one of the questions is why does Revizto focus on scanning and modeling? And the big thing is this is just simply data that we use to complete our projects, right? And all of that needs to be put together and put together in context. So we do a lot with our product. What's the focus? The focus has always been tracking, organizing, and making communication easier. So when you think about all the different things that we do, remember that most of everything that we do is geared towards allowing one human to communicate a lot better with another human. The tools are very cool, right? We've seen a lot of really, really nifty tools over the years, but one of the things that I feel like makes our product a lot different is we didn't look at the tools as individual tasks that needed to be completed. We looked at the tools as a series of tasks that are looking to complete a workflow. And I think that's really what makes our tool really powerful in this sense. And it's really what all of us professionals have been doing with the myriad of tools that we've used for years. So it's not a lot different than what we normally have done. A lot of people ask, are the scans local to the machines? Well, the answer is yes, but they're also transmitted through the cloud to get that local performance as well as that deliverability. And then is there flexibility in the amount of data that we show? This is something that has gotten quite better since last year, and I think it's a really important part to doing very large projects. So here we are, we're looking at clash automation plus point clouds equals more of a streamlined retrofit situation. Now, you can get really creative with our tools, as some have done through various forms of finding deviations or point clouds that are inside of objects or outside of objects. So there has been some creativity behind that. But this was the main focus, what we're going to be looking at today. So what are the benefits? Ease of use. We're going to dive into the product and look at that. Widespread usage, being that it's a cloud-based software. Localized results through automation. One of the things is that anybody that's dealt with Navisworks has probably pushed a lot of buttons in the past to get to a point that we'll get to very quickly today. Scans are localized through proprietary coding similar to voxelization. One of the big questions that we got last year was okay, if I have a gigantic scan that spans multiple buildings, how do I know exactly where this little bitty item is hitting this? And that's where dividing that scan up based on our proprietary formats came into play. Multiple delivery methods, communication and context, streamlined of that communication, and then reporting and dashboarding. So all things that we're really focused on. What we're going to be looking at today is the data set that was used by the United Association in their training classes this year. So what we're going to take a look at here is really just the layout of the software. Now, the software obviously looks like a building information modeling tool, right? We have the guy, we can spin the model around, we can see everything that's going on. One of the things that has happened since we now route coordination through our software is that federation is happening directly in our tool. And what you're going to notice here is that we have models, scans, different RCPs, but we're also hiding a large chunk of this information, right? And this is one of the ways that our tool allows people with low-end machines or potentially mobile devices to actually take advantage of the scans, as well as the high-end users, and create that connection between those users. So what you'll see here is that if I want to turn the second floor RCP on, I can apply that. It's going to load up real quick, and then in our object tree, which is something we talked about a little bit last year, we can go in and we can actually see that there are the scans inside of that existing building, right? Now, in the past, let's say that we were trying to, find out where all of our design elements or all of our coordination elements are hitting this. This would be somewhat challenging, and even if you had a sophisticated method, the communication behind that method was rather lacking. So what we've done through this past year is developed what we call Clash Automation. Now, what Clash Automation does is it allows us to go through and essentially create various different tests, much like we would in Navisource, but automate a lot of the labor that goes into that out. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and create a new test. We've created some very, very simple situations here where I can go in and say, all right, I want exhaust air inside of a search set versus the first floor existing conditions. Now, the one thing here is that scans are now part of that search set process, right? They need to be included, and they interact just like many of these BIM objects do. So here I'm going to go in. I'm just going to give it a test name of RCN. And here it will actually give me a warning. It says you've tested this out a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and say done. And now we can run through and really push a lot of what a coordinator does to the front end of this process. So we can go in here, choose various tests if we want to import or settings from other tests. As far as grouping, naming mechanisms go, here we can choose different sorts of ignore rules, wrapped around space, zone, room geometry. One thing to keep in mind is that we're adding a lot of intelligence to the scan data by the grids and the levels and everything that we're getting from the models that we're using. So it's really a big, kind of a merging of that information. So as we step through this dialogue, you're going to notice that I can go in and essentially specify exactly what type of information I want. Do I want to see a clearance where I have to clear a wall by a certain amount? And how many feet is that? Do I want to go in and set a tolerance? Do I have a clearance that's different in a horizontal and vertical fashion, such as a valve handle that requires 8-foot vertical, 4-foot horizontal, or anything directly above and below? So these are all commonly used rules that we had noticed that needed to be put into the tool here. So as I step through this, I'm just going to go with a hard clash with the scans. So what we're looking for is anything from that exhaust air system that's hitting anything from that existing conditions. As we go through, I can also go in and look for various metadata based on the model. So in here I can go in and say, all right, I want to group everything by level, room, grid intersection, and then I want to group based on a proximity of 15 feet. So everything that I've done there really sort of defines how it's getting grouped. And then down below, you'll see how it's automatically naming those groups based on that data. These are all things that used to be somewhat manual. And if they weren't manual, they took a lot of work from internal development or coding or something to make work that way. I've seen this work, but not without a lot of upfront investment. So, and then final step here is we can actually automate the communication of these issues as they get created. So if I have a pre-made mechanical issue here, I can make sure that that's sent out to the right person with an automatic deadline, all of our tags, watchers, and priorities set up right there. Then when I'm done, I can simply click this button here. It's going to run through, and it's going to identify, where all my problems are, right? So here we have 13 new clashes. I'm going to open this up, and we can actually see automatically what level, roof, grid intersection, how many hits there are, and it will immediately isolate those elements and that scan to that area so that we can run through here and see exactly where our modeled elements are hitting our scanned elements. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that scans are difficult to work with. So you're not always going to get a perfect envelope around the object, right? You can see that it detects a little bit. It kind of widens out the selection of the scan. But this localized result is much better than seeing the whole file light up, right? And this gives the individual some really quick ways to jump in there and essentially see immediately what's going on in those existing conditions, change those views, and even go through there and change, appearance profiles back to system colors, get that realistic scan back in there. We can actually see that floor drain now, as you can see right there. So lots of flexibility in the way that we view these. So as we go through here and we look at these, we can go back to white, isolate and transparency. Now let's kind of finalize this with the communication aspect, right? So we're coordinators. We found this problem, right, through Clash automation. So what do I do? Well, I have a couple of different options here. If I really, really trust Revizto as a product, I could have automated everything I'm going to do right here out of the gate, which would have ran Clash detection, automatically discovered your issues, and pushed those to the issue tracker. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of manual review, which is where most customers will start out with our product, which is where I can check this out. Once I check this out, that means that nobody else on the project can work with it. They can view it, can't work with it though. And I can go through and say, oh, well, this is definitely an issue, right? So this has been reviewed, it is an issue. This is not an issue. We're going to go ahead and approve that. We're going to see the visibility change so that visually lets us know that that's been approved, right? We're going to go in, review this, and maybe we go in and we say, you know what, these two actually are going to be taken care of by the same person. So we're just going to group those together, and then we're going to set that as reviewed as well. So a little bit of automation, a little bit of manual manipulation to get to the results that we want. When we're done with that, I can simply create issues, and it's going to say, hey, you have 2 of these 5 clashes have been reviewed and are ready to be communicated. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and sync that. And what you're going to see is that those clashes are now out to the individuals that need to take care of that, right? So here I can go in, I can see the test. Here I can see the issue. I can see it's already been given to Jesse Gallinar, already been reported on. And if he isn't at the bar, he might comment on it, but I don't know. Now keep in mind that if you know anything about our product, everything that is in here is now being reported on in the cloud, right? So this is all of your XML reports, everything like that. All of that is being taken care of for you. And everything that you see on the right is all the issue metadata that can be used in that reporting. So, this is one of the things that we've really been working on over the past year that ties into the way that we coordinate. Now, for anybody that didn't see last year, what I'd like to do is really tie this into how the web space works, right? Now, there's an important thing about this year that we did not have last year, in that the issue tracker now lives on the web. So, for example, if I go into the workspace, all of this stuff that we're talking about, all of these images of the scans, and we're talking about accessibility, there is now another layer of accessibility right here in the issue tracker directly on the web. So here we're looking at the same thing that we were looking at before with the scan information, but no application needed, right? Great for project managers, project executives, people that don't need to run and gun in the application, but really want to dial in on what exactly is going on in the project and communicate around that. As you can see, Laura's in there, already commenting, putting in screenshots, markups, all of that. All of our filters transfer across, and then you also have access right here to all of your tracking, dashboarding, and any of those that you have right here. So